The Ultimate Musicians Party. The year was 1927 when the Party Boys threw a bass element party in their crowded house. The Chicago home of the Killers ushered in Panic at the Disco in a disturbed way, but despite the Tears for Fears, there would be no mercy as the outcast braved the traffic to get there. The party was 98 degrees west of Alabama on a big mountain on a black street in an ice house, held together with 9-inch nails and a slip knot. "If you're a Radiohead, then it's the real thing," announced the radio birdman on the ABC. Imagine dragons as you take that inner city B-52 to the Manhattan transfer. Turn left on the 10cc, then escape with a foreigner on the Starship past the men at work before you journey to the Oasis, he said. This was the one direction that all of the village people were headed to find their 5 seconds of summer. "Right," said Fred, "we are kings, so let's challenge the status quo and go west to Kansas, Toto. We'll get some corn, some meatloaf, some bread and some cream along the way to make humble pie. Don't forget the Corona, the brandy and the cranberries," said Sheryl Crow to the Pointer Sisters. "After all, you are the Romantics. And don't forget the cardigans, it could be a Coldplay," said Madonna. They arrived at 4 p.m. where the Jungle Brothers began the introductions to their offspring. The Beach Boys, the Pet Shop Boys and their bros all came to meet the new kids on the block, the Shantuzis. After a while, the Queen and Prince arrived as the midnight oil set over the Guns N' Roses in the Savage Garden. Meanwhile, Johnny Diesel and the Injectors had a simple plan. They would drink poison, smoke supergrass and take LRB with Bob Marley until they had black-eyed peas. Either way, it was complete madness of their simple minds because they were going simply red and mental as anything, even though the Spice Girls said it had no effects on them. It was human nature that the others felt like garbage though, and everything was an extreme blur as their Green Day turned into Nirvana, with the Cure being the bran flakes that Destiny's Child brought. "Try smashing pumpkins and mixing them with this Limp Biscuit I found," said Willie Nelson. "That will make them too wet, Willie," said Peter Allen. Lynyrd Skynyrd looked over to see Will Smith and another Mr. walk in. "Who's that?" asked Bob Seger. "That's DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Haven't you seen them on television, Kenny G? You need to get some more REM. You're looking like the Elephant Man," remarked Justin Timberlake. After 7, the doorbell Biv DeVoe rang, and it was a culture shock to see the slayer of Angels' public enemy #1 Supertramp, Lady Gaga, who had arrived on the train with a bottle of the Verve champagne she stole from Tony Bennett. Yes, she was a thirsty merc, but there was no doubt that even though she was bad company on Skid Row, she had the knack of a survivor and was headed with her bangles to join the flock of seagulls and the intruders in the backyard. "Let's smoke the Chemical Brothers," she said to the Everly Brothers. "Yellow," said Bob Dylan. "That's heavy D, but first we need to clean the muddy waters in the bong, otherwise I'll snap and have a massive attack," he said. Soon after, Dr. Dre arrived with his Snoop Dogg. "Is that your cat, Stevens?" said Cliff Richards. "Nah, man, it's his pit bull," said Billy Joel. Aretha Franklin then rocked in and began putting her cold chisel through all of the radiators and doors of all of the cars. 3 doors down, Rob Thomas had formed his own cult and had decided that the new order of the day was cash money. "Marvellous," said Max Q. "It may be a cheap trick throwing pebbles and brownstones at the portrait of Whitney Houston, but how else can we stop this in excess of fine young cannibals causing dire straits with the other 2 in a room, Bobby Brown and Luther Vandross?" Boom crash opera was the sound as the kids in the kitchen tried making iced tea from an ice cube, some 2-pack lacquer and a 3-day-old Bananarama, blended with red hot chili peppers, some salt and pepper and a cup of sherbet. It looked worse than custard mixed with rock melons, and the clash of Flavor Flav was enough to make all of America, the Middle East and Europe Chuck Berry. "Pass me some sugar, Ray. That should fix it," said Neil Sedaka. Ray Charles accidentally handed him the salt in a rush. Yes, they may have been bowling for soup, but at least they weren't having to eat the angry salad with hot tuna that the twisted sister Cyndi Lauper had brought in a Sublime cake tin. Diana Ross and Michael Jackson, meanwhile, were watching the monkeys counting crows, as it was ever clear that they had faith no more as Frankie Valli arrived with George Michael. "Hey, where does Frankie Avalon go for holidays?" asked Frank Sinatra. "Frankie goes to Hollywood. He stays for all 4 seasons," replied Dionne Warwick. "What a hole. That would make me feel like Alice in Chains," said Alice Cooper. Mike and the mechanics who were here to fix the cars suddenly had an indecent obsession with Mariah Carey. Meanwhile, a few of the hunters and collectors sat down and watched Huey Lewis in the news, while the others prepared to firm the wax to fix the damage caused from the ultimate chaos. 5 minutes later, Joe Jackson arrived with his Def Leppard and said hi to Eminem. "That's one ugly kid, Joe," said Susan Boyle. "Uh-huh," said Britney Spears. "But you can hardly talk with a head like a dragon and a busted chocolate starfish. Walk the moon, Blondie, before I call 911 for your bad English," said Susan. Next minute, a Daddy Cool walked in with Miley Cyrus. "Is he a little Dickie?" said Ronan Keating. "No, he's actually Robin Thicke," said Katy Perry with a smile. "How do you know?" asked Marvin Gaye. "Heavy D and the boys told me. Apparently they all took his shaft full of Pearl Jam," she said. "Oh, that would sting with that big Sex Pistol." "I'm not going to kiss that," laughed Kylie Minogue. "Run, DMC, it's the police," cried Terence Trent D'Arby. "I've lost Lobos," screamed Chris Rea. Everyone ran like a pack of Beatles performing Spandau Ballet and a Divinal Supergroove. "Quick, Grandmaster Flash," screamed Eric Clapton. "That'll scare him off." Easy, E. Just give him the nickel back that you stole in Chicago and the longest jail term you will do will be 4 tops, said Kenny Loggins. Meanwhile, these new age hippies, Justin Bieber and Iggy Azalea, began rolling stones over James Rain. "You be 40 tomorrow," cried Kelly Clarkson. "You must give me live and joy with your King Missile and make me all wet, wet, wet with your talking heads. Your cutting movement is the cause of my wah-wah knee and the bad loves I have." She said, "Please take my collective soul, Puff Daddy or P. Diddy or Puffy Coombs or whatever the fuck you call yourself this week. You're such a pretender. I want you to crisscross my simple minds on the silver chair over there. Treat me like a Fuji and give me TLC. I want the real McCoy," she said. He mumbled as he split ends. "You must take the East 17 and then the K7 to go see Dr. Alban to get your fix of Moni love juice." His will to power was not enough to stop the Time Lords and their hoodoo gurus from cutting off the ACDC. "We must be positive, K. Louie. Why are you repeating yourself, Duran Duran? You're all Radioheads, Tony. This culture of arrested development went well on into the Green Day. The models were eating seal while the cutting crew with their powder finger had gone from boys to men and began their own new edition of AB Logic. The police all began getting hard-ons when they realised it was an easy beat to be the Slayer. They killed everyone except a brother beyond the kitchen door because he was a good Charlotte with no air supply after being kicked in his remaining family jewel. They thought he was the last Proclaimer, but then they saw Roxette. "Oh, not you too," said the screaming tribesman. They killed her too, and all that were left were the animals known as the Arctic monkeys and the eagles who proclaimed that they were the Heartbreakers. But they weren't, and even though the place had been trashed when Ozzy Osbourne threw his Hall & Oates while screaming jets at the Stone Temple Pilots and the shy girlfriend of Jimmy Barnes, the Fallout Boy was naughty by nature. "Coolio down, you baby-faced brat, and colour me bad silk scarf in a jade blur of Sade, while your eternal organs entrance the eclipse of your sisters with voices," yelled Kenny Rogers. "And while you're at it, can you stop your Snoop Doggy Dog from trying to emanate your rage against the machine by making the American gigolo kiss his blessed union of souls on the genitals?" During all of this euphoria, Jim Morrison told his Southern sons to take the niggers with attitude with their brand Nubian clock to Jefferson's airplane and Nana Muscuri's B-52s. Barry Manilow and the passenger went to Jimi Hendrix's Texas house, which they had nicknamed the church, even though the carpenters were still fixing the walls. They were drinking vanilla ice while painting the walls a metallic brown colour. Meanwhile, Tone Loc and his brother Young MC had gotten themselves into a deadlock near the Pink Floyd staircase with Elvis over which one of the motels in Berlin they were going to wham a diva's black box at. At the same time, John Bon Jovi had thrown his girl overboard, Daryl Braithwaite had decided to make some noiseworks by hitting the Black Sorrows, who belonged to the Thompson twins, with a stick to the Bronski beat of Margaret Ehrlich's single on the high-tech 3 Grass as the Snow Patrol arrived. He thought that it would be a delightful experience to smash the Big Pig from Heart into a technotronic orbit over Boston while he listened to many Deltones from his new ABBA album while drinking hot chocolate. Dead or alive, Johnny Cash and his Whitesnake would always be the kings of the sun, while the rest of the Stray Cats and Bare Naked Ladies were just dead Kennedys. But this wolf mother of a party was a mega death-defying party, and one that not even Bob Geldof could beat.